clean tech will be seen as an engine for economic development from here on out. And this prediction is based on different kind of data. This is based on the fact that as I am working with organizations around the world, I find there are fewer Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and more, let's say, not nice people. People who are interested in money and power, and they want to figure out how clean tech is going to get them more money and more power. So we've entered into the ugly world of geopolitics, which is a good sign. In fact, I'm waiting for that Nikita Khrushchev moment. We will bury you with our green technology. It may come with a different accent in the next couple of years. So I think that is actually what this panel is all about. It's talking about money and power. It's talking about how clean technology is going to create economic opportunities. We have a great panel here. We're going to first start off with an overview that I'll provide of what I see happening worldwide, covering the globe, in clean tech and economic development. Then we're going to go into a case study looking at British Columbia from both the public sector side and the private sector side. And there's, of course, a great set of experience here in this province. And then we're going to another situation in Quebec where they're just starting off a clean tech cluster. And then we'll have some discussion involving you, the audience. In fact, I think we should have some folks with a whole lot of experience in economic development and clean technology from overseas. So eager to open that up to the audience. So I'm going to start off with a quick overview of what's happening right now with clean tech as an engine for economic development. And that this is, I'm going to say this is a unique time to really see this relationship between clean technology and development. We're going to talk a little bit about different approaches. And again, I talk with a lot of economic development organizations, and people are pretty much transfixed on the cluster model, which has its strengths. But I think there are many more opportunities out there, which is what I call clean tech for everyone. And then have a couple of quick comments on putting clean tech to work. I think we're really in an amazing time right now. With the economic and financial crisis we've been going through, not a whole lot of fun. And the environmental crisis we have in many parts of the world, particularly in Asia, China, and India, we have an amazing opportunity to rethink, to reinvent the world. And it's not a question of whether we have the need. I think that's very clear. We have the resources, both financial and technical. But I think what we're lacking are new models, new ways of thinking that put the pieces together in a new way. And I think we can take advantage of that opportunity, or we can let the Chinese do it for us. And I think that what's really striking, and as we look back in a few years from now to what's happening at this moment, that China is so aggressively moving into this area. The saying is, red China is becoming green China. And I think that this will be one of the key elements of history moving forward. And maybe that's not apparent to everyone. We're talking about clean tech. We're talking about not just energy, which a lot of people tend to gravitate towards, and it's certainly very important. We're talking about other aspects of water, waste. How do you do manufacturing in an intelligent way? How do you look at materials in different ways? And the neat thing about this description is a lot of this is in common to any place on Earth. It deals with infrastructure. I apologize for this diagram. It has some important ideas in terms of the ecosystem, the key players that you need to understand and engage to come up with a clean tech strategy for economic development. Although it ends up kind of looking like my 9th grade biology class of how a cell works. But the point is that the ecosystem is somewhat complex, and you do need different players. You need the innovators, you need the small startups, you need the large corporations, the investors, you need the public sector, and you need to have them all aligned to create maximum impact. Now, the need is out there, that's clear. You know, Al Gore, inconvenient truth, blah, blah, blah. And it requires a lot of money. And we're throwing a lot of money at it. So money doesn't seem to be the issue. Even if we don't have it, we're spending it. And it's interesting that for the first time ever last year, from out of the blue, the public sector became the world's leading investor in clean technology. So very dramatic change. And where is that money being spent in the public sector around the world? You can see China is leading the world in investing in clean technology, very dramatically. And if you consider what you get for yuan in China versus a dollar, that is on the order of $1 trillion worth of investment. So really incredible. I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly, and if you like a copy, I'd be happy to send you one. Where is China spending this money is also very interesting. And you can see it's mainly on infrastructure. It's on rail, it's on the grid, and water, and a little bit of waste. Water is actually most of that $51 billion. And that's just getting started. They were just warming up last year when they said we're going to put in $221 billion into the sector. They announced last November they're going to put another $454 billion just in renewables over the next 5 years. This is serious stuff. China is very clearly lifting up the needle and putting it into a different groove. They understand certainly manufacturing, and this is just X. It's the next manufacturing wave. It happens to be clean tech, and it will happen to bring them some other key political and economic benefits. In terms of where the spending is going on in the world as a proportion, you can see that actually South Korea dedicated most of their stimulus funds to the clean tech sector. China, very healthy, 38%. But China, not only putting their money where their mouth is, but spending it, which everyone in government understands is a non-trivial task. It's one thing to have the money allocated, it's another thing to actually get it out there and working. And so last year, they actually accounted for 86% of the worldwide stimulus funds actually spent. So they are swift to act. If you do some back-of-the-envelope calculations in the United States, you can say we're actually spending a lot of money in the clean tech sector. And the argument is, if the public sector is spending all this money and, what's the benefit in terms of jobs, it comes out to roughly, let's say, $200,000 per job, whereas the analysis we've done in the past, looking at the VC investment, it comes out to more of a $37,000 per job. So food for thought, not going to draw the conclusion between those 2 points. Another amazing thing happened last year is that clean tech became the #1 investment category in the United States for venture capital. So it's not IT, it's not biotech, it's clean tech. Again, not everybody in Sand Hill Road and Silicon Valley is a Boy Scout trying to do the best thing for the world. They want money. And this is the next place to get money. So that's a pretty clear signal. We've done a lot of research on the role of clean tech in economic development, and be happy to share that with you. And that's where a lot of these estimations come from. And part of this is looking at clean tech clusters. So where are they now, and where could they be? This is actually a map that was done by Monitor Group Consulting. And they said, we have a number of great clusters in the United States currently, but where could new clusters come? Where are their competencies, both in terms of human capital and industrial base, that we can leverage? And they came up with a whole bunch of other potential clusters, which is great. But what if you're not a dot on this map, or if you're not a dot on the current clean tech cluster map? Are you just going to go home? Is the game over for you? And my point is, no. that there's a different way of looking at clean tech and economic development, which I call clean tech for everyone. And that focuses on infrastructure. And if you think about infrastructure, everywhere in the world has some kind of infrastructure, and they have these needs. And an amazing amount of money is being spent on this. If you add up all the money that is expected to be spent between now and 2020, it's about $40 trillion. And a lot of that is in water. And a lot of all of this is in Asia. So much needs to be done, much will be done. The question is how? Will it be done intelligently and leveraging clean technology and creating new opportunities to future-proof different parts of the world in terms of economic development, or will it be done in a traditional way? And if you look at how the US has been spending money, a lot of that has been on infrastructure. And again, this is a huge opportunity to bring in new technologies, help develop them, fund them, and deploy them. In terms of the policy aspects, and we can get into this later, and a lot of this is in the papers I mentioned, I think that we need to, again, lift the needle of thinking of economic development organizations and put it into a new groove, thinking more broadly, thinking more holistically, looking at more metrics than just jobs, helping on the policy side, thinking beyond zero sum, thinking about how can you collaborate with others, and we'll talk about that during the panel, and helping to create local markets for new technologies, as well as making sure there's capital for that development. Again, in our papers, we came up with a bunch of success factors to clean tech clusters. Most of these are pretty straightforward, but I think the key thing is bring all those disparate parts in that biological cell ecosystem together and aligned. One of the interesting things is that a lot of the big innovations, the big dreams in looking at clean tech and economic development are not happening necessarily in North America. It's happening outside. Part of which is where they're pouring concrete and building new communities, and part of which is people saying, hey, this is the next wave. This is how we're going to have a industrial base in the future. So I think we need to look carefully at what's been happening overseas, learn from their positive and not so positive experiences. So in this session, and by the way, I'd like you to leave this session with at least a couple of concrete ideas and maybe at least part of a framework to think about what's your role in clean tech and economic development. You know, be you an economic development organization, a startup, a large corporation, or an investor. So I'd like to keep things as concrete and real and usable as possible. And I'd like to have some questions in our minds that hopefully we can address during this talk. And one is, again, getting beyond energy, looking into other aspects of infrastructure, looking beyond just the cluster approach, and looking at clean tech for everyone, looking at the different roles that the key players are playing both now in this unique moment of recovering from the crisis, as well as beyond. What's going to be the new normal? What's going to be the new equilibrium? And then also kind of rethinking what's going on in terms of zero-sum versus having a more synergistic approach.